Welcome to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast, where high achieving entrepreneurs and leaders come to receive deep, insightful conversations and practical guidance to move from hustle to flow without sacrificing their authentic self and the results. I am your host and Chief Energy Officer, Tammy Cho, a former patient care leader turned international best-selling author, speaker, and face and body analysis expert. Get ready to lead your authenticity, lead your energy, and lead your impact. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast. I have a very special guest here. Our podcast is all about authenticity and leadership, empowerment, all these wonderful things. And I wanted to bring Holly because she's a life coach and a spiritual therapist, and she's all about the soul's purpose and life purpose. And I think that if you're someone who is stepping into authenticity or being an authentic leader has a lot to be being aligned with who we are, but also what our soul draws us to do. And so welcome, Holly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Tammy. I am honored to be on your show. I know you've had the show for a while, and now I get to be on the other seat. So thank you so much. It's an honor.
Yes, thank you. And so I alluded to it. Holly Haw is a life coach. She's a spiritual therapist. She integrates astrology, ancient wisdom, and advanced techniques to guide people towards their life purpose. And she focuses on the meaningful connections that empower her clients to shape their ideal future. She's also an author, extending her impact in that way. Yeah, and I had a session with Holly as well. And so far everything has come true. So this is very good. I just
You've had
want
a
to
couple
speak to that.
sessions. You've had a couple.
Yeah. I mean, there was a whole bunch of decisions and they're still being navigated. And I just want to speak to that. And part of I heard about Holly from my chiropractor's wife, actually. And and she was saying how Holly is very accurate as well. So I want to bring her on the show to share her gifts here, but also to shed some light on the whole path to one's soul's purpose, our leadership, empowerment, and all these beautiful things. And so, welcome once again, Holly. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
and
I love the title of your show.
thank you. Yes, it took a while to come up with, as many podcast hosts can relate to, I'm sure. And I love to start always with like, how did you come to be doing what you're doing? And I'm sure we all have a story behind the story. And so I love to invite you to share that so people could get to know you a little bit.
Thank you. Well, I was raised with a very intuitive psychic mother, did tea leaves, 1960s flower child type of thing, tarot card. She read all of the new age books that came out in the 70s by Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and many masters, many lives, all these things. And I kind of like flipped through them and she had them sitting on her shelf. And in my when I was around 13, one of her very close, very popular psychic friends said I was psychic, but I didn't think I was. I thought I was just common sense, some of the things I was saying. And then in my early 20s, I was telling this story to a friend of mine who I honestly was a very stoic Englishman. We used to joke all the time because he would make these stoic jokes. And anyways, he said, you might be interested in this book. He gave me a book, The Only Way to Learn Astrology by Marion March and MacGyver. And I read it only to show him that, okay, I read it. Nah, not my thing. But I read through it within a week. It was in the day, I'm going to age myself, where there was no computer. So I had to draw up a 2.5-page long form mathematical equation in order to draw up my birth chart. And it was so accurate. It was ridiculously accurate. Then I did it for some friends, and it scared them, to be honest with them, because of the accuracy. And then
Mhm.
I kind of put it on the shelf for quite some time. And then I started working on trying to channel people that had passed on. That didn't really click and stick with me. And then, as you may know or may not know, Dr. Shefali, who's quite world renowned, I read for her before she became world renowned. I predicted that, and she endorsed me several years later. And I've been very busy ever since. And I've gained clients just word of mouth, just like you have. And I really enjoy it because the astrology chart kind of helps my scientific side, believe it or not. It is very mathematical, the angles, and very visual as well. And I find it's the blueprint. It's if we were to be born with a blueprint or a manual, unfortunately, no, it needs to be decoded, but that would be it. It helps people rediscover who they really are.
Yeah, I mean, I love that first of all, and I love what you did for Shefali and how it's like paid you tenfold, literally, right? And I remember going to library when I was a kid, and I sat next to astrology section, and I was so intrigued about all of this. And so I don't have a strong background in astrology per se, so I'm curious, like, how do you go about using astrology to support someone in their
Yeah, good
thinking?
question.
Yeah.
That's a great question because it's not just about your sun sign. In fact, I've now moved more towards Vedic astrology, which is called sidereal astrology. And that's a whole nother story. That would take a while to get down. But I knew that in one of my past lives, I was a Vedic astrologer. And I have, honestly, I'm the most rational, practical person. So this story was undeniable. How would I know a certain thing? And that's how I knew. So I finally gravitated more towards that. And it's not just your sun sign. In fact, that's so far removed. It's almost like saying my hand is the only part of my body that matters. When you need everything, you need inside and outside. It's very complicated. But if my hand is in a lot of pain, the focus will be only on my hand. And that's what can happen with astrology as well. And I can see, astrologically what the focus is. But I mean, we're talking about all the 10 planets that include, which are not planets, they include the sun and the moon, and each and every one of them have a meaning of a layer of who you are. Like the moon is emotions, Mercury is how you think and your process of thinking and communications, Mars is the action that you take, Venus is what you love, how you love, etc. But then their interactions with each other make a difference in your personality traits as well. And then the house placements, if you're fortunate enough to know your birth time, the house placements matter. And then that's only when you were born. And then there's all this planets are still moving, they're still doing their thing, and they're interacting with your energy as well. So that's how I can kind of tell what has happened in your past, what's going on in your life now, what's going to probably happen in the near future. But I'm not so much of a charlatan crystal ball predictor. It's more around this energy field's coming your way, and let's see how we can make the most of it. Let's see what we can do to get to manifest what you want to manifest. I mean, that's what free will is. So if you're looking for a job and you want a job, then a certain Jupiter trine your son could be a very good opportunity to job search and take it a bit further, not only job search, but tell your future potential bosses what you want. I want a certain amount of money. I want to have Fridays off. And because Jupiter will let you have that. It's kind of like a little lucky charm. And understanding there's there's an infinite amount of uh, connections or combinations in astrology, just like there's an infinite amount of combinations of my personality traits. You may meet one, and somebody else is going to meet another personality trait. And people will always ask me, what about twins? Because they're born the same day and they're
Mm.
born only a minute apart or whatnot. The interesting thing is that you have free will, how you respond. And most of the time, one twin will be respond the opposite of what the other twin does. So if there's something in the chart that says that you have, I don't know, social conflict with social interactions in communication, one twin maybe to overcompensate for that, become very socially interactive because they're nervous. There's this nervousness about them, and they feel like they have to engage all the time to be liked and to be connected. And the other one will become more reserved and more shy. And I don't want to communicate at all. I don't want to deal with that. And then there are some twins who are exactly alike. They finish each other's sentences. They
Mm.
want to wear the same kind of clothes. They're very, very similar to each other.
Yeah, I love that you talk about that, and I want to talk about that. I want to backtrack a little bit just because for those that don't know the difference between the different astrologies, and you talked about doing Vedic, and I just if you could give an like high level overview on the differences between this and the what you do and how that
Yeah,
stands out for
good
you. Yeah.
question. Yeah, so the the more solar and more working on the meridian of the earth, that's more of the and I can go down a long story around that, but that's more of the Western astrology. And Western astrology is also going by our calendar, and our calendar, and it's you can look it up, and it's still argued that it's either 11 or 21 days off. And
Mhm.
this is why we're seeing our winters are later and our summers are later. I don't know about where you were, but our summer this year was still cold in June. Like we were
Mm,
wearing sweaters at nighttime in June. And I remember because I went to an event that we thought we could go sleeveless, and everybody's like looking for a sweater. It was outdoors. And so it's getting extended a little bit. So we are off because the galactic, like the way the stars are moving and Mercury and the planets, is not exactly to our Julian calendar. It's not following it.
mm,
And and even the leap year isn't enough to account for the speed of the planets. And therefore, what I'm looking at now, that's Western. So, and Western was developed by Kepler. Being able to align where the planets are, the mathematics behind it was by Kepler in the 1800s. And things had moved differently since then. So people are still going by the old calculations of Kepler. What
okay.
sidereal does or Vedic does is it goes by what you would look in the sky if you were an astronomer like NASA. So what I'm looking at in the sky is what NASA sees. There's a great website called stellarium/web.org. That's a chart for astronomers only, and you can but it does show the constellations, which is the zodiac signs. It shows that where the constellations are, which is all the zodiac signs, and it will show you this the sun is now in a certain sign and it's not in the sign that Western astrology is telling you it is. The house placements will stay similar, the angles will stay similar,
Mm.
and sometimes some of the zodiac signs don't actually change, and sometimes they do. So it's just a bit of a difference, but it's enough for me to give me
Mm.
more a little bit more accuracy.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that because honestly, for myself, I didn't know the differences. I've heard of different terms being thrown around. So I just wanted to bring us all on the same page. And I love that. It's true. Our calendar that we work with is it is off. Like I've heard that several times. And so if I'm gonna choose someone to work with, I'm gonna choose someone who cares about accuracy and just that
Yeah,
2%. Because we all know
yeah.
with empowerment and leadership and doing our best and being the best of who we are is all about that 2% shift. So beautiful. I love that, Holly. Yeah, and I do want to come back to the free will piece, right? Because oftentimes people will go to astrologer, coach, psychic, or whatever it is, right? And we're hearing all these things, and it's like there's always this thing about free will, and I love that you speak about it, first of all, because I know there are some psychic and astrologers out there that they literally tell you what to do. And it really, I think it's, and this is how I personally choose people to see is that someone that cares about like that we do have our own free will. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, can you speak a little bit more to the free will piece of someone who's listening? Maybe you're giving some sort of reading and like, how does one go about and navigate that? I'm just curious your perspectives, angles on that. Coming from the other end, you know?
No, you're absolutely right, because a lot of people have come to me and they're scared. And they'll even tell me, "It took me a long time to take I wouldn't even be talking to you if I didn't have this trust from a friend who told me about you." Uh, because people believe that we're gonna tell you that your life is destined and cut in stone, and there's no way around it. And no one wants to know that their their life is predestined and nothing you can do will change it. And that's further from the truth. The analogy that the map is not the territory is the best analogy. It's a neurolinguistic programming technique. And that's one of my modalities is neurolinguistic programming as well. And that is, for instance, if you have a Google map and Google Maps leading you along the way how to get to a certain location, how many times have we said that Google Map led us in the wrong direction? There was an accident. There was a blockage. It took us in a different direction and we don't know why because it didn't know immediately that there was a detour going on. You take your free will now navigate you against what Google is trying to tell you where to go. And it's your choice which way you go. You might turn this way, you might go this way, you might turn around and go back. And that's sort of like the fork in the road. Which one are you going to take? Therefore, astrology is very similar. I can see opportunities that are coming your way. And it's really up to you what you do with that energy. If you choose to focus it on saving your marriage, if you choose to focus it on saving your job, the energy is going to be very clear what it is, but where are you going to have your focus? And the more that you're displaced because you don't know yourself well, you're dealing with your own triggers. The triggers are more powerful than the opportunity is. Like, for instance, a job opportunity could come your way, but you're so afraid of leaving your job because you won't have that paycheck. And what if you don't like the new job? You could miss an opportunity because you've taken your free will and you've chosen not to take this new job opportunity because of that. And that's your trigger. Your trigger, you got some kind of big money story around it. And I can't tell you how many times I've helped people meander around those triggers so that they don't miss opportunities. But the nice thing about it is astrology is like life. If you missed an opportunity, you had to grow through that opportunity that you missed because there's always a growth around it. Another one's gonna come up, and another one's gonna come up, and another one's gonna come up, and another opportunity is gonna come up to help you deal with the trigger that you have. So, let's say
Mhm.
2 months from now, you lose your job, and you're like, "Ugh, here I was so worried about losing my job because I wouldn't have any money. I didn't wanna take another job, and I lost it anyways." Right? So, the universe has a way of kinda coming in and going, "Okay, you're not gonna quit the job, so are we gonna get you fired?" Or and that's what happens. The more that you want something, you're manifesting. If you're saying, I'm happy with my job, I don't like my job, you are already manifesting. The opportunities will come in your peripheral closer and closer to have you change that job. Might be unbearable, and eventually you just quit because your mental health is affected. It may be another job opportunity comes and you take that, but it's up to you. You don't have to take it. And I've seen people do it. I've literally seen people, and because I remote view as well, and I'll say, I know what this person looks like. I want you to talk to them. You're going to get a job if you can have a conversation with them. And they don't do it,
Hmm.
but it's their choice. They stuck with it. I had this one story. It was so great. And it was that idea. And she came to me with the job change. I said, before you change, sometimes I help people leave jobs, but I said, before you change, I feel like everything that you want, you just have to tell your boss and they'll give you everything you want. But she was ridiculously shy, like painfully shy, painfully shy. I shouldn't say ridiculous, but painfully shy. So she couldn't do it. And no matter how much I coached her, she just didn't. She just found another job, didn't even know she would like that job, but she was so stressed where she was. She just wanted to get out of Dodge. Well, the long story short, her boss found out through the grapevine that she was about to leave, resign. And he said, just tell me what you want. I'll give you anything to make you stay. And I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness it worked that way for her," but it
Mhm.
doesn't always work that way. She could have missed an opportunity of getting exactly what she wanted if she could have gotten over her own trigger.
Mhm.
And sometimes one decision is not any better than another decision. Whether you turn left or you turn right, you're gonna end up in the same destination
Mhm.
eventually. And how long it takes to get there? Well, time is a concept that's constructed by man only. There's no real concept of time. So we're the one that's gonna suffer because we're like, "Ah, I wish I did this 2 years ago. I wish I did
Mhm.
this 5 years ago." But it doesn't really matter, like, you got there. That's all that matters. So I
Yeah.
hope that kinda went a little off there, but I hope that answers your question. We have free will to decide how we use our map.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that, and it's perfect how you spoke about it because I think we hear this all the time when we make decisions. We either make what feels like the right decision because then we get what we want instantly, but then we also have the realignment
Yeah,
lessons that it's like we'll get there, but maybe we had to learn something before we got there that will
absolutely.
expand that success even more,
Yeah.
right? And I think that to bring those pieces into this of where we see that as pieces that we have no control of. But and Holly, you probably have the perspective of, well, it's not control, but the energy's there and the planets, and I could serve you to navigate that with more ease. And so, yeah, I love that a lot. I'm curious with the piece you talked about. What did you call it? Remote viewing. What is remote viewing?
So remote viewing, the CIA did a huge study on it years ago. It's called the Stargate project. If you're familiar with American politics right now, they're brought up a new program called Stargate, but it has nothing to do with that. You can look up the old Stargate program, and they did a movie on it, actually, Men Who Stare at Goats with George Clooney. That was a movie on the Stargate program that literally happened. And so the agents, they were trying to teach them to remote view. If you watch a movie called a documentary by Caroline Corey called Superhuman, you'll see some examples of remote viewing there. And I've actually interviewed the lady that runs a school in the UK that teaches kids to read blindfold. So it's the ability to be able to see something that isn't in your view. It's not there, but it's
Mm,
happening right at the same time. So with my experience remote viewing, when I was working with clients for over a year or so, there was countless amount of times where people would go, I think I'm using a metaphor. I think I'm using an example just to reiterate something, but my examples were exactly what something that happened to them. And like verbatim, like I said one to a client, her and her husband were close to breaking up. They were going on their vacations was their nightmares. Every time they went on vacation, it was a nightmare. And I said, it's like if you want to book a vacation to Barbados and you want to do this and you want to do that. And I named literally Barbados, whatever. She goes, okay, Holly, we literally went to a vacation in Barbados. And that was the vacation I told them, if our next vacation is like this, our relationship is over and other things too. So I got to the point realizing, okay, I'm remote viewing. So now when I see something, I'll say, you have a boss that's female. She's a little overweight. She's got bleach blonde hair, about this length. And they're like, oh, yeah. I said, you are not doing well with her. Yep. And so
mm,
sometimes it's advantageous because I'll say, go to that person, ask for the job, ask for the raise, or that person's going to be leaving soon. I don't see her in the picture anymore. It gives them confidence that I'm not just making something up as well. And often it just gives them reassurance that some of what I'm saying around that situation is probably a lot more accurate than they might believe because I'm seeing. I had one was perfect. There was a boss, she wasn't getting along with him. So the whole conversation was around this boss. And I said, or a couple of bosses actually. And I said, okay, well, I'm seeing one of them has he's got a gray suit on, like a medium light gray suit. His legs are up on the table. And I'm thinking that this is more showing me his attitude because I could see this sort of cocky, arrogant attitude, legs up on the table. I'm the boss of you kind of thing.
mhm.
She goes, Holly, he has a gray suit in his office. It's a suit he wears every day. He comes to the office, he changes into that suit every day, and he has his legs on the table, on his all the time. So I was like, okay, well, that's the one that's really giving you a hard time. And then I,
Mm,
recognize the other. So I wouldn't say it's 100% that I get it. It's not that my accuracy is usually very close to 100%, but I don't always get remote viewing. So I don't advertise it.
mm. Got
I
it.
can't do it at will.
Yeah.
Somebody can't say, there's a missing person. Can you tell me where it is? I'm like, no. But
Mm,
the CIA with Stargate, it was for them to be able to find missing people, abduct people that were abducted,
mhm,
missing objects, and they were successful in
mhm.
training an enormous amount of agents to remote view.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I just never heard it. I heard of clairvoyance, but not in this way. So I want to just let's realign back to this whole thing about soul's path. Does one soul always have one path? For people who's listening, right? They really want to live their highest purpose and to
Yeah.
know they know there's more for them. Or like, what would you say to that piece?
Yeah. The first thing is to understand who you are. Like, and the first thing is to know what your triggers are. Process of elimination. Know what your triggers are. And the only way for you to know what your triggers are, besides having a reading with me and I can point them all out, and your gifts and your talents, is to witness when you're agitated or frustrated or mad or angry, or even if somebody purposely made you upset, and that would make anybody upset, you still want to turn it inside and go, what is it about me that is really triggered by this? Why is it making me angry? Why is it frustrating me? Why is it shutting my voice down? Why am I afraid to communicate and talk to them? Because there is a tendency for us to go into victim mentality and just go, why does this always happen to me? or it was from my childhood and I'm wounded. And I'm sure all those things are true. But at the same token, you want to know what your trigger is. You can't fix something unless you know what's broken. And I don't like to say what's broken, because with every trigger, there's a gift. So for instance, if you're really shy and non-confrontational, well, this is going to affect you possibly in your career, because you're going to
Mhm.
get walked on, you're going to get taken advantage of people. But at the same token, you're very fair and you're very honest and you're easygoing and people find it comfortable to be with you. And you don't want to get rid of that part. You like that intriguing, comfortable piece of you that makes it easy for you to integrate into your world and people please others. But you want to know what the shadow side of that is, because you don't want it to be out of balance. If it's out of balance, you do need the shadow side too, because there are times maybe when you shouldn't speak up, when you should hold back. If you've got
Mhm.
another part of your personality that gets angered easily. So it might be, well, it's good that I'm non-confrontational, because if I said everything going on in my head, I'd be in trouble, kind of thing. So sometimes it works to your advantage. But once you know what those are, there's the best and easiest way to start dissolving them and making them work to your advantage is by just observation. That's it. And if you go to science and physics, there was a study done in the 1940s. You can look it up. It's called the split theory. And observation changes things. Just observing it.
Mhm.
You don't
Mhm.
have to get mad at yourself and even if you do, even if you start criticizing, observe that too. The mere state of observation will start to dissolve it slowly. Ignoring it, shoving it under the carpet, pointing the finger and blaming someone else, that's just going to fester. It's going to get
Mhm.
worse. And once you do that, and you start dissolving triggers, then you can manifest, because nothing's going to get in your way. No person, no situation, no tripping and falling and downfalls, illnesses will get in your way. You'll just start soldiering through despite your triggers, because you go like, well, that's me. I'm non-confrontational, so that's why I haven't approached my boss. Then you'll start working on it. And one day you'll approach your boss and your boss will be like, "Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Okay, let's do it." And so you just manifested more peace and tranquility within your job. Or your boss might go, "Sorry, can't help you there." And you go, "Well, I can't work for you anymore." And then you go and you find another job. So you just manifested a new job. And then the energy, don't ask me how this works, but the energy starts conspiring with you, trying to help support you. And your peripheral visual vision gets bigger, and you can see things that you didn't see before. You can witness opportunities you didn't witness before. So it's not all just woo woo. There's an actual like biological, neurological component to this. But yeah,
Mhm.
and then you're off to the races the more and more that you do that. But it's challenging for some people. Some people have had really traumatic life, and
Mhm.
they have to work on very small things at a time, and that's just all they got, is to work on that small, and that's big. It's bigger than you think. So
Mhm.
whatever that is, every day work on one little piece of yourself that you would like to improve.
Yeah, I mean, often we think it's this big thing, and often it's the small little things that we don't want to look at, and that's where I come
Yeah,
in, in helping people with the trauma pieces. But
that's
I
right, you do.
yeah, yeah, and I'm curious, like with the whole soul's path, like I'm hearing, obviously, working through the triggers is important because otherwise you can't really navigate the energies and to walk that path. But what does the soul path like have to do with someone's success and how that unravels? Is it
Right.
important to be on purpose before we could have the success? So speak
Yeah.
about that piece.
No, you're right. What I like about astrology is I look at the North Node will tell me what a soul's path is. The South Node will tell me what your old soul's path is and what you don't want to repeat in this lifetime. So that's one place that I start. Then I'll start looking at the moon. I'll start looking at house placements as well. And the soul path could be something as simple as, in this lifetime, you're here to be courageous. It could be that simple. And you want to practice courage, and courage is the face of fear. Some people say, "Well, I'm not courageous, Holly, because it's scary. It's frightening for me." Now that's what courage is.
Mhm.
If it was easy for you, then you wouldn't need courage. It would just come naturally. You just do
Yeah.
it, right? And there are everyone has a different part of their life that is easy. So once you know, or it could be something really big, which I can see, where I'm here to be a doctor and I'm here to help discover a new way of treating cancer. I've got a lot of clients actually that were doctors. I'm here to go against the system and practice something different, maybe something more alternative, more of an ancient practice. I've got a few clients that have gone from being an MD to following naturopathic medicine and whatnot. It could be that you're here to be a teacher and communication, and you have a adversity to the educational system. The more that you whatever your childhood was and the most difficult part of your childhood, you are here to do what you didn't get as a child. Some of it might be really severe, like you might have been raised by a raging alcoholic that beat you all the time. Then you grow up and you become a counselor and a therapist because you want to help people just like you. That's your destiny. You know it. The more difficult childhood you had, the more of a destiny you have to become the solution to the problem that your childhood presented to you. And some people will get mad at me and go, "Why would I choose a life like that? That's horrible." Well, you imagine that you're standing in line before you're born and somebody says, "What do you want?" You're going to upgrade your soul. You want to master something. What is it that you're mastering? What is it that you're working on? And say, "Well, I'm working on being a healer. And the piece that I'm missing is empathy. I'm not really good at it. I have a hard time with it. I get sucked in." So they'll say, "Okay, well, then you're going to be born to parents who have no empathy."
Mhm,
So
mhm,
you know what it's like not to have it. So you curate your own form of empathy by the lack of it. Some people would say, "Well, why wouldn't I be born to parents that are ridiculously empathetic?" And they're going to teach me that. In 99% of the cases, that won't teach you anything. It makes your life easy. Why do I don't really need to learn anything around
mm,
it, right? Unless, yeah. So your childhood is your first point of reference to teach you why you were here. And I understand some of them are horrific.
mhm,
Some people's childhood is really, really bad. Let's say you've come here because you want to change the world around sexual abuse. You wanna make a difference. There's too much going on in the world. I wanna be someone I'm gonna keep coming back, and I'm gonna take that, eliminate that from the world's trauma. You will come here and have that experience. You'll experience who you're trying to heal, and then you'll grow up and you'll be an advocate, or you speak about it, or you talk about it. Maybe you'll go to a therapist and that therapist realizes, "I wanna help more people like you. Thank
mm,
you for being my patient, and sorry you had this trauma." And it's really hard to wrap our heads around it when we go through something like that. But as a
mm,
soul, it's easy work as a soul. Once we leave this body and we go there, we're like, "Okay, what's next?" Right? Nobody wants to go to the gym and work out every day and lose 20, 30 pounds because they're going to be diabetic. Nobody wants to spend 4 years at university to get a BA, but we do it because we know the hard work's going to pay off and
mhm,
we're going to get to a destination that we feel more intelligent, or we feel like we can help people with our BA, or we don't have diabetes anymore. And
mhm.
that's kind of what life is, a little bit of a boot camp for some of us.
Yeah, thank you for adding those pieces when you spoke about that, right? Like our the pain from our childhood, often we're given that contrast to know we're meant to learn the exact opposite. When you spoke of that, I just got so many shivers in my body of confirmation. And as well, I would say like that was my pain. This is why I help people with the self-love and being authentic because I didn't think I could show up as me. I didn't think I was worth anything. And so it was totally on par for me and what you're speaking about. And the whole thing with like we were in line before we actually were birthed into this world. And I think that was the only, reason I had for how life, why it navigated the way it navigated, really,
Yeah.
to have that perspective that we chose our parents so that we could walk our path. And so this is really beautifully put how you place that. And so around my question of like walking one's soul past a path and feeling successful, and it's almost like that's what our soul wants, to be able to walk this that doesn't feel logically we want to do, but when we listen to the deeper pieces of us and follow our soul's path, that's when we actually feel fulfillment and success, and perhaps even authentic wealth.
You nailed it. Exactly. You said it perfectly. That's exactly it. And we live in a monetary world, and we live in a world where that monetary lifestyle can be taken away from us in a heartbeat because we live in comfort. We have more comforts now and quick fixes than humankind has ever experienced in its existence. And therefore, if we really have to dig into the past, and whoever are the people that you know historically, Mother Teresa, Jesus, Gandhi, there's so many different, Nelson Mandela, they were not famous for good reasons. They were not popular. They were not wealthy. They were not rich. They walked a hard life to help heal people and be there for people. They were beaten and stoned and ostracized and thrown in jail, right? And we want. Oh, I want to be famous and help people and serve people. Well, it's not always the way it is now.
Mm,
You got to look back at those types of people, or Louise Hay, who founded Hay House at the age of 55. 55. She wrote her first book at 45. It became 55. 62 was when she finally had a famous, popular, everybody wanted their book written, publicized by Hay House. Age 62. But she
mhm,
lived to be 92 or 91, something like that. So she got 30 good years of enjoying the fruits of her labor. And she had a terrible life. She was adopted after adopted in adoption agencies, and she went down that path. So I'm not saying we all have to, but some of the people that are famous, this is temporary. This is a temporary state. It's not gonna be there forever, and just like Jim Carrey says, I wish everybody had the ability to be millionaires at the time, now it's billionaires, because so they can learn like I did how that doesn't bring you happiness at all.
mm. Yeah, I
And
agree.
so you wanna do what's authentic. You wanna do, like, what is serving you, what is serving others, and if you can, there is a good chance that you'll make money long term in
Mm,
that. I'm not saying that in order to help other people, you can't make money. But the first thing should be that I'm here to do what authentically fits me and what
mm.
works for me. And that will afford me a good lifestyle, whatever that is.
Yeah, and just let's all just take a breath to that if you're listening to that, right? Think we're in a world that we're told we have to achieve certain things and have certain things. And yeah, what if we gave ourselves what we needed at a soul level, that we be happy first? So yeah, I just wanted to honor that of what you
Thank
said
you.
there.
You're right. Our happiness matters.
Yeah. And Holly, as we're coming around to that, I would love if you could offer some sort of prediction for this whole topic we're talking about, standing in our authentic leadership, being our best and highest self, and walking the path that may not be the easy path, but it's the right one and the true one. I'm curious if you have any predictions,
Yeah.
yeah, for us.
Yeah. We've got Venus coming up in retrograde. It comes around every 18 months. It's in retrograde. It's not always in the same sign at all. So it'll be, about 12 more, maybe even 16 more years before it's in this sign again. And it's in Pisces. It starts March 2nd. We're going to start feeling it soon. It ends mid-April, and we'll feel a little bit after that. And when it's in Pisces, it's about two things. If you're a healer, in whatever that is, you could be a healer, you work in a grocery store, and your need for the day is just to make as much people smile as you can. You're a healer. Or you could be a brain surgeon, right? Or you could be a
Mm,
naturopath. So for healers, their healing modalities have an opportunity to deepen, but it's not a time to actualize it when it's in retrograde. It's a time to look within yourself and say, what do I love? because Venus is about love. What do I love about my healing modality that I have? And how can that love for my healing modality strengthen and and magnify what I love to do? And how can I connect it to the love energy? If we have any type of abandonment issues, they're going to be triggered. In some world events will happen that are going to trigger abandonment issues, especially if the abandonment came from bullying or control or gossip, because Mars is in Gemini too. So gossip and what other people are saying about you, which is a form of gossip. For instance, if I see a social media post and I don't like what I'm seeing and I make a comment saying that, what they're saying is wrong, I'm engaging in this gossip type of mentality. Then everybody kind of beats me up because they don't like what I said, or some people support me. This is all an essence of gossip. You want to think first, is this come from love? Is this coming from love? If it's not coming from love, because Venus is all the planet of love, then
Mm,
don't. Then don't do it. It's a time that we may want to revert and be on our own and be by ourselves and be private and spend more time sleeping. We're going to be a little extra tired. It's a
mhm,
great time to learn meditation. It's a great time to engage in more musical or artistic and creative endeavors. And yeah, March is, yeah, we're going to have some things that'll hit us that'll make us feel like we're victims, because Pisces is a victim mentality. But at the same token, you want to look at it like the phoenix rising. Okay, let's break this all down. We're done. We're down to the ashes. How are we going to rise above this?
mm,
Even though, and we don't want to make anyone else feel like a victim by
mm,
saying your way is wrong and your way is wrong, because that's what it's going to trigger. If you find yourself on social media attacking someone, take a look at, did they make me feel, not that they made me feel, but does this
mhm, mhm,
situation have me feeling like a victim? Is it bringing out my abandonment issues? And
mhm,
abandonment doesn't just mean that your mom left you on a doorstep when you were 2 months old. Abandonment could be that you didn't have a voice when you were younger, that your parents didn't want to hear anything that you had to say. They were too busy trying to make
mm,
money, or that the school system that you went to didn't
mm,
recognize that you were an artist and creative rather than, mathematics and English. So you just
mhm,
really want to take a look at your abandonment triggers. And then we're going to all come out of it in April. We will have healed those abandonment. We would have healed through deep conversations around feelings, and we will come out of whatever global news comes out around it, knowing that we're not victims. We're stronger than
mhm.
that.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for, giving us this rundown as we're going into March. I think March 3rd or 5th. I forget what day
Second.
you said it's
Oh,
starting
this, yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah,
Venus. Yeah,
yeah,
thank
March
you.
2nd. Yeah,
March 2nd. Okay, perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, and so Holly, if someone wants to reach you, I know you're offering a beautiful 20% off to my audience. Thank you so much.
yeah,
And I'll
yeah.
have that in the links below. If someone wants to reach you in other ways, where would you suggest they go?
Yeah, the best way is if you're wanting to know more about my work and what type of readings I have. I have anywhere from 15 minutes to hour readings. That's askhollyhall.com. It's right there on the screen,
Mm,
askhollyhall.com. And the other way is there's a message box there. If you want to directly talk to me, it goes right to Messenger on Facebook. So you can start talking to me right away if you've got questions. And my YouTube channel, which is also Ask Holly Hall. And I've got TikTok as well, but my YouTube has more engaging, informative, learning, predictive as well, astrology, and you can get to know, the way my brain works and see if you're wanting to work with me according to that.
mm. Thank you so much, Holly. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing you and your soul's purpose with us. And yeah, telling us, giving us a rundown of how astrology plays into all of this. I've learned a lot myself. I'm sure the audience has as well. And so thank you for being here. And I appreciate you.
I I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. And leave us a review so others can find the life-changing content that we're sharing here. We are starting our movement on our way to number 1, and we need your help to get there. If you'd like to connect with other high-achieving entrepreneurs and leaders who are also on their authentic, energetic leadership journey, join our free Facebook community, Energetically Aligned Leaders. Go to pathtotheheart.com/links to join the Facebook group, book your personalized face analysis experience, or to access our resources.